First up is Patrick Hochstenbach. I think many of you will know him. Currently, he's doing his PhD at Ghent University about applying decentralization techniques for scholarly communication. This work is related to the Core Notify project, which implements an activity streams profile for scholarly communication use cases. He has been working for over 25 years in digital libraries in Europe and the United States. And yeah, he created already the first SFX server and was involved in OpenURL and OAI PMH standards. You may know him from the programming committee of ELAC as well. And yeah, not to forget, he's also the best cartoonist on subjects like library tech fair and research data management. So, Patrick, the stream is yours.
Thank you, Adrian. What an introduction. I hope my talk will also be that nice. We'll be talking this afternoon about shapes, forms, and footprints. It's about part of the project I do on doing the decentralized production of RDF data, and we hope that this way of how to produce data on a web-based way will make it easier for institutions to put on the web. It all started during the COVID-19 crisis, where I think many libraries and the suddenly were asking the IT departments to very quickly create web forms and tasks that people could, when they were working at home, could do some tele working tasks. So many libraries use Unity to input metadata for their catalogs, or to do crowdsourcing of metadata editing to scan materials. So that was also the thing what was happening in Ghent University library, and the first applications were written quite fast in a few days, but there were more tasks, and the COVID crisis lasted much longer than we expected. So there were more applications, which took some weeks or months to create. All was very good and very tuned to the problem, and it's created nice metadata. But the question was, could this have been done in a faster way? We could have used maybe in cloud services like like presented here, but the problem is we were also using with inputting of personal data, which make it very hard to use this cloud-based services. And for instance, most of these cloud services don't produce very nice structured data. It's mostly kind of an Excel kind of output, which you need to process afterwards a bit more. The second reason we were thinking about how to produce data was in my research project. I'm like Adrian said, I'm trying to think of applications where institutions institutions can interact on web scale on a decentralized network and produce data and send messages back and forth what data they are producing. Also there you can make a nice application that gives you a nice input screen for your library metadata. But in every library worldwide, you need always to add some extra fields, delete some fields, and you don't want to spend too much IT time changing all these platforms. So there was also there a reason giving an existing input field. Is there a way to make it easy adaptations to the metadata? So that was the main reason for this forms project. That was actually you can look at a border scale. So at my research lab, we are using the Solid protocol and applications to store our RDF data in the library rules, the Fedora system is often used. But with both of these implementations, give you just a server and an API to interact with RDF data. It doesn't provide out of the box an input way to input nicely your RDF data in these systems. You need to program it yourself. So the question was, can we make something that works on top of these kinds of systems? And it's very much, you need a new way of thinking when you are going to make applications for an decentralized world, because what we are doing the last 20 years, or for me, the last 30 years, is writing for very centralized applications where a platform is tightly coupled to a central server. Writing for a decentralized world is a whole different way of programming, because the apps we are imagine are not tightly coupled to a server, and it's not centralized. Here you have an app that just lives somewhere on the web that should create a way to input data, but this web application doesn't know where your server is. It only knows the protocols that are available on all your decentralized servers, and you tell the app, please use one of my servers to store or to read data. So it needs a special way of programming. How should we make a decentralized way of platforms that generates RDF data? And this is what we are doing now is based on a blog post of my promoter Ruben Verborg, who writes that we actually need to think about three different things to make this happen. One is the shape of the data. That's the idealized way how your RDF will be structured. It contains all the fields, for instance, of your idealized book, what potentially is possible to describe a book. A form is a structure to describe what you actually show to the end user. For instance, a cataloger will see a different kind of web form than if you're doing any kind of crowdsourcing where you need only a simplified sub-selection of fields. And the footprint is a way to store the produced data back on your storage container or your storage graph. So again, the shape can be very complicated, but the book form is just that part you want to show to your end user. There are already many technologies that try to implement these things. Certainly, quite well known in how to express the shape of RDF. You can do this with the Shackle and Shex vocabs that gives you a way to describe how your RDF is structured and which fields are required. There's also to describe what you actually show to the end user. Is also a Shackle-based way to do this, but it's always a very tight coupling is how you do the validation of your data fields and what you actually show to the end user. The Shackle standard doesn't do this decoupling of the two different things. And there are some implementations that can be used to make, based on a Shackle form, make a web input form, but it displays mostly the complete Shackle form is and then this very targeted to HTML versions, and it doesn't target if you have another way of inputting the data, like on a command line or in a Java desktop environment or any kind of environment. There's also form generated stuff that is not tightly coupled to the validation of the data. This one built by Tim Berners-Lee is called Solid UI. There's one built by Daniel Baker. It's his own vocab. There's also the RDF forms. In the XML world, you have the X forms for a long time that can do all these things, but it's very targeted to XML data and not to RDF data. To describe what you do with all this data when you press on the submit button, there's not much things available. So the experiments that we are currently doing is with Hydra and shape trees and also N3 logic that describe what you do with all this data. So we are working now to a pragmatic solution to see how we can solve this problem. Where you have a lazy user that just want to have quickly a web form to input data that solves 80% of the use cases. And you have a lazy developer that just want to make this application one time and where it can be reused many times by many end users. We try to use it with a sort or LDP endpoint. So the architecture of the solution we built a one-page JavaScript application. We call this the form viewer app that just lives somewhere on the website. Maybe can even share the link on the MetaMost to the source code if you're interested. This application reads a few resources from the web, and these things can be anywhere on the web. It doesn't need to be especially on your server. The user here, Alice, and decides what resources to input in this application, and it needs at least three resources. One RDF document that describes what kind of web form you want. Maybe you want to already populate this web form with some data. So it's a data form. And one thing that says what should happen if a user presses the submit button, where should this data go? So this form viewer app, in a very declarative way, can read all this data and does what the user here asks. And it's maybe asked to store this data in a SolidPod environment. So I already put on MetaMost a link to a working pragmatic application. This is all based on the vocabulary and tools that Daniel Baker made for his RDF forms implementation. I choose his forms because it was for me the most intuitive way to input RDF data. I found the other implementation a bit too complex to be used by the average user. And what I already said, that you need to have 3 other resources. All these things can be passed to this viewer app via an open URL. Of course, I did open URL in the past. You can really send this kind of forms via a mail or via a message or a notification to another user and ask, please fill in this web form. Is ideal for crowdsourcing. So this is a bit how the RDF form looks like now. This is currently not an 3C standard, but we are looking at other standards that can be used to describe how this form looks like. But it shows you a bit the forms field that are needed, that you want to present to the end user, and if it is read only or if you have multiple or not. So you can go to this link and see an example. Of course, you know how RDF looks like. This is the SWIP conference. So this is a data that fits the form definition we just saw. And this is how we're currently using the Hydra as a footprint definition that defines what should happen with this data once you press the submit button, here we say we want to send it to my pod, to an inbox container, and it should be submitted by a post. Here's how this forms look like. This is a very generic way to view forms here. This you have name, value pairs. You can do an auto lookup in Spark endpoints. You have this selection boxes, and you have radio buttons, and you have text fields, and you can show images and whatever you want. The big question is we want to have many applications that implement these things. So my question is not how much features you implement, but what is the 80% features we definitely want that can be implemented in many different tools. So this is what I say, what we already have and can support. Maybe not all of this is needed for all the cases, so I'm very interested if other people say, well, these are really the fields that every web form should need, because Daniel Baker's way you can create very complex input fields with nested forms. Yeah. So you can whatever you like. So it can do much more complexity than what we now have in the cloud-based environments. So it's very nice if you know how to make RDF to define how a form should look like, but still you need someone from the IT department or people that know RDF to create this web form. And the great thing is of the cloud-based services that really non-experts can also create this web forms on the web. So with students, he created for us a drag and drop mechanism. So you have on the cloud-based service where you can drag and drop all the form elements you need. You press on the save button, and it will install somewhere on a place you have access rights to. It will store the definition of the web form, and he implemented it for 3 different lookups. So he did it for shackle-based form generation, for Daniel Baker's RDF form generation, and for Tim Berners-Lee solid UI generation. And this one you can use in this form viewer to actually input this data. So then you have your data stored somewhere on a website. What next? Well, of course, if you have the performance information, if you have this also stored on your website, you have the data. You have to, you know which kind of shape was used. You also know what kind of form was used. So based on this, there should be enough information to imagine a very large community that can make websites based on this information. If you know that you have created a popular CV kind of shape, you can make applications that display this CVs in a nice way, or books in a nice way, or book reviews in a nice way, or conference proceedings in a nice way. So here's an example application that takes a shape of a CV and tries to display this in a nice way. So this is what I actually use on my own website. For the next steps, we want to add reasoning to the web, because my application, the form viewer app, uses RDF form of Daniel Baker. But what should this application do when it gets the shackle form as input, or a Sult UI as input? So we want to have some kind of on-the-fly translation of one schema to another. So this is one reason why you want to use reasoning. And there is also a way, well, what if the data you want to load into this web form that doesn't really fit to the shape? Also there you want to have to do some reasoning. And also with Hydra, you can have only one hard-coded endpoint where you want to store this data. What if you want to store it in two places, or send in two places plus send a notification to an user? What if you want to say, based on the output data, I want to decide where you want to store this data? This can be done with reasoning. So currently we are investigating N3 logic. This is an language to express implications and do logic rules and inferencing on the web. RDF service is a new project I am doing with Jos de Roo, where we are creating RDF chips on the web. This is kind of a machine level language for RDF that really expresses the pure logic of RDF with a really classic negation operator, so you can do all kind of programming on this. And with our student, we will try in the next year to put these things on the web as JavaScript applications that you can plug in reasoning in many JavaScript applications. So this is very exciting. I think this is my talk. I think I had 20 minutes. I hope that I was not over time. I see I had only 1 minute left. I'm on time. Yes.
Yeah, great. Perfect. Thanks, Patrick. This was really interesting talk. Some cutting edge research going on there. I must say, I probably haven't understood everything, but I'm eager to check out all these tools now and to learn more about them. Yeah, we have one question by Jakob currently. He asks, he says, layout like sizes, spaces, colors also affects how people enter data. How do you address usability when forms are generated automatically?
Yes, so that's why I hope that more people will get interested in this way, how to how these things should be produced, because I hope to foresee a large market of developers and maybe also companies that create these apps to make web forms this array. So if indeed the layout is a very crucial thing there to input data, but currently I can't go on the web and download with one click a decentralized application to do a production of metadata. So I hope this will be a starting point, that there will be many applications that can do this and can use the same kind of definitions to describe what you actually want to see in the web form, and then do any kind of layouting you want.
Okay, thanks. Another question by Laura is, can the form do lookups against local data sources or against external sources like Wikidata?
Yes, so the Daniel Baker's implementation has internally using Communica, and Communica is a browser-based Sparkle engine that can query anything. So it can query RDF, it can query LDF, tuple fragments, it can query any Sparkle endpoint. So yeah, you can plug in there and sources you want to query, and you can also say, when you input the data, please send this this Sparkle query to a Wikidata. On the website of Daniel Baker is an example where you have a recipe input form there, and all the ingredients from the recipe are actually lookups you do in the Wikidata. You get really a nice URL, and you get the image of the ingredients that is in Wikidata you get in the web form.
Okay, thanks. So I think in the chat there's no further question. I have one
so unclear
last question. So, but I guess you haven't tried this out with the use cases you showed in the beginning with in the context of COVID-19 crisis.
No, it was too late, but I'm now doing it for book reviews, peer reviews. I'm doing it for bibliographical input of data. We use it for a kind of a doodle system. Yeah.
Okay, there's one last minute question by Ben. Can other sources for form definitions be used to translate to RDF forms? Or the other way around, to create nice looking forms? Are there any efforts doing this?
Again, so if you have, yeah, so if people are interested, they can send me a mail. I have a whole list of other kind of alternative implementation, and there are it's a huge list. So if you're interested, just send me a mail, and I will provide you your information how these things can be done.
Okay, you best put it in the chat then,
Yeah.
so everybody can read it. Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Thank
Again.
you.